Hey everybody, welcome to another review episode here at Hyper RPG on the YouTube. We're going to be talking about Stranger Things Season 2. It's been out for a week, so hopefully you have binged it, because we're going to be doing some spoilers. I'm Cameron Rice, joined by
Elizabeth Hayhurst
and Lucas Eubank.
Guys, we're going to be talking about this show. Many thoughts, many opinions. They're out there. They're ranging. Also, the show's doing really well. We've learned that Nielsen's, I guess, is actually now tracking Netflix. Mm-hmm. And it looks like the first episode had almost 12 million people watching the first 3 days. That was just TV, ignoring any kind of someone watching on their phone or a computer or anything like that. So Stranger Things is huge. It's massive. If it was on a network TV, it would have been the number 1 or 2 show of that week. So let's go into initial thoughts. Elizabeth, what did you think of this season overall? And then we can dive deeper.
Overall, I liked the season. I would say it wasn't my favorite compared to the first one. Mm-hmm. I mean, they explored some things with tone and going in different directions with individual character stories, and I feel like some of it worked and some of it didn't.
Yeah. What about you, Lucas?
Yeah, I pretty much exactly agree. Didn't love it as much as the first. I loved it, but it was kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say all over the place, because I do feel like it had a pretty good central through line. It was just kind of messy, maybe, but we'll get into it, I guess. I don't want to. We'll get into that talk.
Yeah. For me, I'm similar. Where it kind of reminded me a lot of Game of Thrones. In that the first season is very much a central mystery. Game of Thrones had the murder mystery. For this Stranger Things, it was what happened to Will Byers. Mm-hmm. And all the characters were together in kind of trying to figure that story out. Whereas Season 2, much like the latter seasons of Game of Thrones, all the characters kind of spread out into their own storyline.
Sure. That
will kind of then coalesce into a finale.
Yeah.
Some of those storylines I really, really, really liked. I think this might have had individual moments that I liked more than Season 1. But at its core, it didn't have that strong central core as Season 1 did. But this one felt less plot oriented and more character moments oriented. Yeah. So overall, I would say, I really, really enjoyed it. But it is interesting to kind of look at the individual pieces about that worked, but that was rough.
Yeah. And, I read enough on the online forums, and, we sort of binge watched it here the night it came out. But I sort of I was kind of confused by, a lot of people are very confused by episode 7, and I feel like this is maybe a setup for season 3. But if this is a setup for season 3, I don't know if I'm gonna like season 3, because I didn't really like episode 7. It felt very out of place.
That might be worth actually being the first thing to talk about. Is episode 7. Episode 7 is very controversial. Episode 7, again, if you're watching the spoilers, episode 7 is the 11.
It's the X-Men episode.
The X-Men episode where 11 runs off with a group of people. This is the first time we've left the city we're used to, and 11 goes off to find other numbers. In this case, it was number 8. And they go on it's the shortest episode at 35 minutes of the season. And this is also the thing, comparing it to Game of Thrones, this also kind of made me think of Lost, where it's these seasons now are going to have their central mysteries, where the first one was Will Byers, this one is what's the Shadow Monster. But the larger storyline is going to be, who is 11 and where did she come from?
Right.
Who is your daddy and what does he do? So I will say, if this is where season 3 and the rest of the seasons are going to kind of play out, where there's a central monster, but the government stuff of 11 and all this other stuff, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because those were the things that brought down Lost and the X-Files and a lot of other great shows.
Oh, you mean the involvement of the government as a larger...
And being the larger threat of the whole show, as opposed to the individualistic season thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because I don't mind when they broaden getting to higher levels of authority. It goes deeper than we thought, and I thought the way that they brought it in the first season was great.
Yeah.
When they brought in the stuff with Russia at exactly the right time, where it was earned and it had been hinted at so far, but it wasn't and now everything we cared about before doesn't matter. It added to it.
Yeah, I felt like the beautiful thing about season 1 that they did so well, and why this show really took off, is that they presented you with so many questions without answering them. So the mystery was still there. It was just basically they were saying, we don't need to answer these. They're not central to this story.
Yeah.
We're just trying to find Will Byers. There's a mystery going on outside of this. Mm-hmm. There's tons of questions. We're not going to answer them. They don't matter. And then in season 2, they start to answer some of those questions, and we lose that mystery where I don't really I mean, I want to know that there are other people like 11 out there, but like I don't want to know where they came from, all this kind of stuff. They start answering these questions and it starts being a little less mysterious.
I think also it's just a lot of it is tone. Like honestly, the tone that they struck and like all the punk stuff, some of the characters were so cartoony. Yeah. I felt like they were hitting the tone like a level, like an episode of like the old Hercules show or Xena show, like with the way they were having some of the characters behave. And it's just like even when they brought in it in season 1, you still had that dark kind of foreboding Steven Spielberg, Stephen King kind of tone to it. And then we lost this because it's like everyone's going to be a cartoon punk.
Yeah, it really just did not fit, especially in this show that's kind of established itself to like, you know, throw all tropes out the window. Whatever direction you think they're going to go with the character, they go like a more honest route. Like the characters just seem to make a ton of sense in this show. Yeah. But then here we have episode 7 where there's like 4
a lot of
characters.
Two-dimensional characters, whereas I feel like in season 1, rather than you wouldn't have a full character, you would have a peek at a character that seemed 3-dimensional. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with not answering questions. It's like, I don't have a problem with answering questions, but don't answer them in like a slapstick way.
Sure.
Like have a hint of a 3-dimensional person that you're not completely going to understand versus this like, this guy's got spiky hair and he's tough.
Right.
And this guy plays cards.
Yeah, and that's sort of what we're talking about a little bit, comparing it to other shows, is like Stranger Things season 1, there was no guarantee that was going to work. So everything is kind of a self-contained story.
Right.
The only real hint that there might be more was the very end of season 1 with Hopper putting down the Egos, where it's like, there could be more, but if there's never any more Stranger Things, this was a nice self-contained end of the story. This is now setting up things where it's like, we know we're coming back, so here's flags for season 3, not just with the punk group, but also Matthew Modine might still be out there. He's the cigarette-smoking man of this show. This character might still be out there. There's an 8. There's got to be more. Like that kind of a thing. So I'm like, okay, when we step back, and the Duffer Brothers have said like they see the show going 4 or 5 seasons, probably at 5. So I kind of wonder if we're going to step back and it's like, oh, the show we loved was the Stephen King, Steven Spielberg, homage 80s stuff. What the show was about was these government conspiracies and doing Firestarter as a TV series.
Yeah.
The Drew Barrymore Stephen King book.
And that sort of goes along with, you know, I had hopes for season 2 that it would be, you know, maybe the Department of Energy has more stuff that they messed up and we're not going to go back to the Upside Down, and like maybe Will goes back to the Upside Down and that's like his superpower or something. But I feel like the Upside Down might be tired. I didn't have the connection with the monster that I did in the first series because that monster was so terrifying and intimate. And
well, there's the thing I think of like because the season ends with the shadow monster still being there. So it's like they didn't really defeat it as much as they kind of just purged it.
Yeah. And it was like not that scary of a monster, I guess. Like it's ever present. Like you can always just see it. There's no like, you know, the sneaking around that the Demogorgon could do, and this sort of like dimensional just hopping that it could do. Also, this shadow monster, I mean, it possessed Will, but he's by all means fine, whereas the Demogorgon could just eat you.
Yeah.
I feel
just
like,
a little less terrifying, I guess.
They built up the suspense of like every time the Demogorgon would come out and would feast on something, and you'd see it from that low camera angle, like in the background, and you'd hear it. Like they did a really good job of always kind of respecting that this thing is scary.
Right.
Yeah. And so just to stay a little bit on the stuff that didn't work, because there are positive things I absolutely love, and we will get into. I'd rather end on positive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Didn't love the Dustin stuff. I really like the character of Dustin. Dustin really stood out as a character last year. And I feel like for the sake of plot convenience and contrivance, and look, I'm not saying characters need to do the things I would do or any of that stuff. And I know he's a kid and kids do irrational, dumb things. I feel they made Dustin really dumb.
Yeah.
Considering the stuff they went through last year.
Also, did he kill his turtle?
I didn't even
he just like
he
the
said,
turtle.
"Sorry, Yertle."
Yeah, the turtle has like a heat lamp over it, and then he just took it out and just put it on the ground.
I forgot
so is it
about
like,
that.
is he letting it die of cold? Like if it hits the heat lamp?
And you got to think if the dart did eat the cat, it probably ate the turtle.
Yeah, you'd go turtle number one right there. It's slow and
that's the other thing is like just in that thing, it didn't make sense. Like if he loves reptiles so much, why didn't he care about his turtle? Why didn't he care about his friends more? Why wasn't I don't know. Like I didn't feel like they
out of
earned.
character.
Well, it's those things where it's like, and I feel like the end result, because the end result is like it all was just seemed to be this payoff. So when they're all stuck in those tunnels at the end, Dustin could go up to Dart and give him a Three Musketeers, which I was like, I don't know if you needed all this other stuff. Like,
Right.
It's the thing of,
Well, someone told me that that's the advertising money.
and it might be, and,
Sure.
you know, but you
And
got
if they need that, you know,
you got
whatever.
to do what you got to do. At the same time, it's the thing of sometimes characters doing dumb things, ignoring the plot, I will forgive more so than a character has to do a dumb thing so a plot can move forward.
Yeah.
And I felt like the Dustin stuff, and also Dustin's mom, who I was trying to remember, I was like, was she in season 1 with this actress? This character?
Wasn't she a different type of character?
Well, I don't even think she was. I don't think we ever saw Dustin's mom. I think the only parents we saw were the Byers and the main
Finn Wolfhard's
Wolfhard's
character.
character.
okay.
Mike's parents.
Mike's parents. I don't think we saw Dustin, and so it's very weird that it's like the Dustin stuff felt kind of what we were talking about with the punks. The Dustin stuff felt very sitcom-y.
Sure.
Where it's like the mom was very one-dimensional cartoon
Yeah.
character, and there's a sitcom situation of like he's gonna hide the thing from everyone else and put it in his hat and all this other.
Yeah.
And it's like Dustin was the comic relief, but it felt like at least the first half of the season, it didn't feel like the same character. It felt like, well, we got to give all the kids some business,
Yeah.
and that felt very businessy as opposed to like an actual storyline that I wanted to follow. But everything with him moved in the second half. With I'm bad with character names. Great hair.
Steve.
Steve.
Yeah.
Everything with him and Steve was great.
So good,
I loved all
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And everything with him and Hopper in the last 2 episodes with Dustin were great.
Yeah, and you know, we were talking about this, Cameron, the other day, that all of that stuff with Steve and even with these demo dogs, it all could have happened without Dustin taking Dart.
Yeah.
Like all those demo dogs showed up, and it wasn't because Dustin took Dart. Like they still
Yeah.
could have had that thing without having this weird.
Yeah.
I need a pet, and I know it's bad, and it's out of character for me to love it, but I love it.
Well, it almost would have made sense to have that happen with the new character, with Max.
Yeah.
Who doesn't
She
have
doesn't
experience.
know.
She didn't have the Demogorgon experience
Right.
from the first season. So you feel like you would have, but then that doesn't look great to have like the new character and the girl be
the dummy.
the dumb one
Yeah.
who brings in this demon.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And also, final thing for me, Max's older brother, who's played by the Red Ranger from the Power Rangers movie, didn't mind the idea behind that character of having that existential real world threat, except that he wasn't a threat to anyone but Max until the very final episode.
Yeah.
So it's like there's that degree. Is like usually you invent the bully character and bring them in because they're kind of like it, where that character is a threat to the kids on top of the clown, and this character was like a threat to nobody but the new character sister.
Yeah.
Until the very last episode. Not bad, but it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, why did you create this guy then?
I also really thought he was going to die or see a monster or almost die or something.
There
Yeah.
would be something at the end.
Yeah, where he
Yeah.
had to see, because like Steve had to see stuff last season after like
Yes.
showing up and getting in the way. So I'm like, okay, so this is going to be the new guy who's just like, what is this when he's thrown into it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell what they were trying to tell me with that character, because I feel like we all expected, like, okay, there's a reason he acts this
Yeah.
way. We're gonna find out like what the motivation is. He's probably being abused at home or something, and you know, come to find out, his father's very abusive, homophobic, racist, all this stuff, and it's like, okay, that explains his character motivation. But then after that, you know, you want to sympathize for him, and that's what this show does so well. It's like these characters are
Yeah.
multidimensional, but you want to sympathize with him, but he continues to be an asshole. And it's like, it's telling me, like, first of all, you should sympathize for this character, but also, like, let's let Steve kick his ass. It's a weird
Yeah.
thing. I don't know. Didn't know what they wanted me to feel about him.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I'm not even saying we have to get the savior thing, but like
No.
I feel like something should have happened to him, even if he just sees a monster and has to get out of the way and he doesn't redeem himself in the season, that's
Right.
fine too.
Well,
But like
yeah.
literally, they just left it like there was no payoff in any direction from him. Although I will say that I did really enjoy their backstory. And that they didn't like overly explain it and they didn't fall into the trap. I mean, for me, it was kind of a trap of like losing the tone that made the show successful when they explored other backstories. I feel like the amount that they went into their family was the right amount.
It was, yeah.
I did also enjoy the scenes with him and Mike's mom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
she's in the
that was,
robe.
that was funny.
great.
And he looks like John Bon Jovi.
And then at that point, I was like, I think I might like this character. I want to see more of this.
And then he beat the shit out of Steve.
Yeah.
What about you, Elizabeth? Anything else? Anything we didn't cover that didn't work for you?
You know, I don't know about the oh gosh, I'm blanking on the names too. I didn't know about the whole like love thing with the detective. all those scenes were pretty cheesy to me when they go to the detective's house.
Oh, with Nancy and Will's older
Yeah.
brother. Steve Byers.
I kind of respected that they didn't give us exactly what we wanted in the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you have to stick with that forever, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. All of a sudden, I felt like we were like in a B story of a sitcom from the '90s with kind of those lines and the acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that was weird about that was like you kind of see it coming. I'll actually say that has one of my favorite score pieces. I think Kyle Dixon killed it on the score for this season.
Oh, whenever
I
they
mean, killed
first
it.
start making out,
Yeah.
and the synthesizer comes in, I was like, oh man.
I love
Oh.
that score piece. I'm listening to that for a lot, but yeah, I think the thing is like because I actually like their centrals. What and again comparing it to a little bit to Game of Thrones is that stuff that happened in season 1. I don't think people really knew what season 2 was going to be for Stranger Things, where it's like it's just going to be a new monster and then we're moving forward. But I kind of like that season 2. A lot of season 2 was repercussions of season 1.
Sure.
So I kind of like that Steve Byers and Nancy's story was about finding out what happened to Barb.
Yeah.
And then the relationship stuff kind of they find out what happened to Barb, and then their story's not over because now they got to make
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like, oh, well, I kind of liked you two being this like all the president's men of the monster world. What happened to Barb finding this out? That was a cool story.
Yeah.
And then it just ends with like, well, we made out. Now we're gonna go back to the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like it's almost like in a weird way where it's like you kind of wish either their storyline had kept going where they were still looking throughout
Yeah.
the season, or maybe they just went back to the town. I don't know, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Totally, yeah, and I agree that all that stuff within his like warehouse where they were, you know, trying to water it down or whatever, that all felt super slow. The pacing was kind of weird, and I was like, I don't need to hear you say all these things. You know, with the whole like, oh, you guys can share my bed, or you can take my guest bed, blah blah blah. Like we're gonna go home tonight. It all just felt like, you know, we could establish this whole tone and this whole feel of like we're having like a weird relationship thing where we don't know what we want to be. I feel like you could do that with one sentence from him.
And that, yeah,
It's just kind of awkward.
And I would say that overall, this series did a lot of like explaining to the audience that you're dumb.
Exactly.
A common device that they use, which I'm always like, you didn't need that. So like, if you have, for example, episode 7, when the girl says like, harness your anger to be more powerful, they literally need to show the flashback of her telling her that, not
There's a fair
once,
amount of flashbacks.
not
Yeah.
once, but twice. And it was like that happened this episode, and we just saw the scene. We didn't forget it in the
Right.
last 20 minutes.
Yeah, there was a lot of flashback stuff like that, which it was kind of like,
It's just like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
We understand your point.
yeah. Lucas, anything from you?
You know, I feel like we've hit all the things. I've made a lot of notes, and I think we've hit them all. Overall, I just felt this like the entire series was not as smart this time, and I think that's okay. I think they wrote a sequel, and I think that this thing blew up in a way that they didn't expect, and they had to write for a larger audience. I think a lot of what they did was intentional, but I didn't love it. You know, I think that they can treat us a little bit smarter, as you said. There was a lot of just a little too much exposition, I guess, a little too much explaining to all of us.
Yeah.
But overall,
I will say some of my favorite scenes in season 2 were the Hopper and 11 scenes.
See,
I thought that
so
was
good.
I do
handled
want to talk
great.
about things we
yeah,
loved.
yeah.
Everything with Hopper and 11, I adored. This is what
Yeah.
I'm talking about. Moments that, for me, were more powerful, and I think I enjoyed more than individual moments.
Because
from
they give
season
it
1.
some respect. For some reason, they give the father-daughter relationship with them respect. They don't shove it in our faces. It's very organic, and you believe both actors in the scene.
yeah.
Everything with Hopper, I really, really, really liked. I thought David Harbour killed it again
Yeah.
as that character. But I loved, everything with 11. I really, really loved, appreciated. The cleaning montage that people were talking about was great. I think Winona Ryder killed it. A lot of people kind of made fun of some of her performance from last season. I give them credit too. I think like there's a lot of criticisms of certain things from season 1. Winona Ryder's performance, she was a little more dialed down. I didn't have any problems with her performance.
Well, she's going to be also a little more dialed down because she knows where her son is.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
no, I agree with you. But I feel like I don't hear anybody making jokes or making meme faces from anything she did this season, and she was still awesome. The fact that there's a great scene with the character of Lucas talking to Max and being like, "Here's what happened last year."
Yeah.
And then when it cuts back and she's like, "Pretty good story, a little derivative."
It's so good.
I feel like you ripped off a lot of things, this, that, and the other, which was like them commenting on their first season. So we were originally, the reason we did the binge watch at midnight when it aired was we were going to do a video of like, here's the movies that the 80s things, Stranger Things pulled from for season 2. And we got to episode 5 and we're like, there's not much.
Not much.
There's almost
Yeah.
nothing.
If they're making a reference, it's because the character is making that reference. It's like, we're dressed as Ghostbusters. Like, we're not going to make that video and be like, if you didn't catch the Ghostbusters reference.
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, you could say maybe like the latter half there was a little bit of Aliens
and
Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
where it was
Jurassic
like,
Park
we
for
start
sure.
The thing.
Well, Aliens definitely, some of those shots.
Oh, some of those shots. And debatably, a little bit of it where the kids are going to go down into the underground to fight the monster on their own.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything with Harbor. I love the two new characters. I really loved Sean Astin.
I liked
Bob
him
Newby.
too.
I love
I
Bob.
thought he
He
was
was
great.
And
I
I
liked how they handled him too.
Well, I liked how they handled him because I was telling Lucas, I thought for sure because they were just really nailing in the first chunk of the season how he was like, oh, the brain, and people kind of made fun of him, and he never thought he would date, someone like Winona Ryder and all these other things. So the scene where he's driving Will, I thought for sure, I was like, here it comes. Here's the moment where he's gonna turn to the kid and go, if you fuck this up for me, blah blah blah. Like he was gonna actually be a piece of shit. And I love that didn't happen. That like he just continued to be a real good, decent guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love this character.
Yeah, he's the best.
I also liked that like his advice was very terrible advice, and he
was bad.
he didn't mean it to be. He was
He's
doing
the
the best
reason.
he could, and he just did not understand.
But
the
in that
situation.
perfect, like, he wasn't a stepdad, but in that perfect stepdad kind of way of like, here's something I tried.
yeah, I love how much that was wrong.
Oh, man.
I loved him. I loved Paul Reiser as the doctor.
Oh yeah, he was good too.
Well, I love the swerve on it. And here's, of course, they cast Paul Reiser from Aliens, and you think and that's the kind of casting you'll do because you as an audience are like, oh, they want us to think this thing is going to happen.
Yeah.
And the fact that like in the first chunk, he is kind of like he's a little bit of a dick, and he is kind of like looking out for the company. The scene with Nancy and Steve. But at the end, I like that he wasn't just Matthew Modine.
Oh,
that he was actually like a decent guy who was like, I want to help the kid.
Yeah, he was
I'm
great.
gonna help the kid. Everything with him. There's a lot about the show that really, really worked for me. And it was like those new characters. It was kind of living in moments. I love that Lucas did not get much of a story in the where we talk about the kids splitting off and getting their own stories. To me, Lucas was probably the most successful.
Yeah.
Of having his own story. I loved his sister.
Oh, yeah.
His
She
sister
was,
with the He-Man dolls.
she had some fire.
Oh, she was a great character and used the right amount. See, like I feel like that's when you get comedy into a show. You're not betraying the tone. You're not undercutting what it's doing. It's just a fun, light moment that goes with the story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the comedy, like we were talking about with Dustin when he's explaining the Dungeons and Dragons rules to Harbor, and Harbor's like,
Yeah.
"Are we really talking about this?"
I like how it doesn't pay off because that's set up so many times where it's like, it's the exact thing we said.
Yes.
And then it just makes no sense.
Yeah. And the scene, like just now, it's just individual moments. But like when me and Lucas talked about when they all show up in Ghostbusters costumes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
None of the other kids are dressed
That
up.
was good. I mean, I feel like I've seen the joke before, but it's still good.
Yeah, it's a
it
good
worked.
joke.
Yeah.
Well, also the fact that you had the camera on Dustin, who's like,
Yeah, it was great too
Horrifying.
because they used that shot in the trailer to make you think Dustin sees something horrifying.
And no, it's
No, it
just
was just
humiliation.
He was embarrassed.
Dick Doug being a big part of the game.
Yeah, Dig Dug was great foreshadowing too for the tunnels later that they would go into, and there were actually some references there with the Dig Dug character. There's these like tomato sort of character. If you've ever played Dig Dug, they wear these like yellow goggles. All the kids go into the tunnels later, and they're all wearing these goggles, and it was a really cool visual representation of we're good at this game. We're gonna go down in there.
Everything with Steve. I loved everything with Steve.
Yeah,
this season.
Steve was great.
Steve was the best.
The drunk conversation he has with Nancy in the bathroom. I looked over at Lucas and I'm like, "Have you been there?" And he went,
Oh yeah. Oh, we've all been there.
When
Oh my gosh.
Either a girlfriend or a friend is being way too honest.
Her drunk acting was so good.
Oh,
That's
she
some of
was
the
very good,
best drunk
yeah.
acting I've ever seen. Very believable.
What about you, Elizabeth? Any individual?
What do you think of the montage with the mother?
Where we're learning about Eleven's history?
where she sees in her mind, and it's the whole giving birth child montage.
I guess generally it didn't work for me. This comes from me, and not that it was done poorly done, but it was kind of like an answer to a question I didn't care to have answered. I guess it did kind of remind me of the X-Files, where Mulder finally finds out what happens to his sister, and then you kind of go, well, we're kind of past that. I don't need to actually know. I kind of like that it's a singular driving thing that drives him older.
Yeah, I will say it's funny because BoJack is a show that had almost that same sequence in it.
Right? Yeah.
And,
Did it really?
And
Yeah.
BoJack, I thought, did it amazingly. It's some of the best art I've seen in a sequence, and the writing was so good, and everything about it is earned, and they go back and connect certain visual cues, and it's just brilliant. And this, I thought, was kind of hacky. Like the fact that they're playing Philip Glass music constantly with their flashes of numbers, it's kind of like, all right. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like it's kind of funny that BoJack Horseman did it so, like, thoughtfully, and then this kind of just seemed like a bunch of sort of cliche symbols for a woman losing a kid. Or
Right,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do those numbers unlocking the safe? Like, why are those a part
Yeah,
of
why are
this,
those
you
as
know?
important as the child and
Why
the
is the word
gun and
breathe,
the
you know,
yeah?
it's just kind of
it's
like-
just stuff that's there.
Yeah. It kind of I feel like it was all just a convenient word to have that whole montage
Yeah.
later.
And I feel like the character of Mike Finn Wolfhard, even though he was in every episode, I feel like he must have been shooting it at the same time because Mike didn't really have anything to do other than kind of stand around with Will.
Yeah.
While Will was doing stuff. And I like the character of Mike, so hopefully season 3.
Yeah, I did notice there's a lot less of him.
Yeah.
I mean, other than him trying to kind of reach out to 11. I will say that's the thing for me. The finale, even if like plot-wise, because the Shadow Monster's still there and all these other things, plot-wise it wasn't very satisfying. But I think the prom sequence was emotionally very satisfying.
That prom sequence was fun.
Yeah, I
that
really
was
loved
great.
everything with that. I like that all the characters had their individualistic little things. Especially, I love the scene with Dustin where he has the
Yeah.
hair and he's getting rejected. That
Yeah.
was very sweet.
Oh man.
So yeah, overall, I think we all like the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not as like core strong as season 1, but again, just for David Harbour alone, every scene, there was no scene for me that I didn't like.
Yeah.
With Hopper.
And you're
Yeah.
so right with the Game of Thrones comparison because like all the negatives that we had were all plot. All the positives that we have right now are all character. Like
Yeah.
it really just dove into the characters and sort of gave us what we wanted that all the fans were demanding basically. And it really just the characters really shined hard in this.
Yeah, and I'll give the writers credits too. Is like this, last season there was a lot of stuff that kind of got memed or very internet friendly, the Christmas tree lights and stuff like that, which were cool plot things, but also made shirts. I left this season going like, I don't know what you would make. Like, I don't think there's anything.
Yeah.
Maybe the demo dog, but other than that, I'm like, I don't know what would be. There's nothing, for lack of a better term, memeable or like much like how the season didn't have a lot of like pulls from '80s stuff. They tried to kind of tell their own story. I appreciated that. I appreciated that they actually just tried to do a sequel and not like, here's a bunch of callbacks. Like,
Sure.
Oh yeah.
the
yeah.
finale didn't have like Winona Ryder pulling out the Christmas lights. To be
Yeah.
like, what can I do with these?
Yeah.
I will say that when they were putting together all those pieces of the map that were just like two lines and filled in the middle and matching them up with like 300 other pieces of paper that looked the same, I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way
was
you
just
know
too
the
big?
difference
Yeah.
between these. Well, it's just because like many of them were just a rectangle shape that was the same.
That's
like,
one of those things I just push out of
Yeah,
my mind. I'm
it's
like,
just-
I'm just gonna
yeah,
try to
just
enjoy
let it
this.
go.
I know this is dumb.
Oh man, so good. But guys, let us know what you thought of season 2 of Stranger Things. If you agree or disagree, where do we hope season 3 goes? Yeah, do we want to see more of the brothers and sisters? Where do we hope the kids will go? The individualistic stories, because I think now they're going to be in juniors or seniors.
Yeah. They'll be in high school now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, because this would be like 8th grade, so they'd be going into high
Yeah,
school
so they'd be
next
going into
year?
high school,
Wow.
which again, that can make for a lot of great character moments. More Harbor, of course. But yeah, where can people find you online, Elizabeth?
Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Ford Prefix Kid.
Lucas.
You can find me daily on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/hyperrpg, and you can follow me on Twitter at Lucas Uspank. That's EUSPANK.
As for me, twitter.com/Jurassic Alien. Follow me there. And I got a lot of stuff going on over here. You'll know about it. I tweet about it. Thank you all so much for watching. Let us know what you thought of that Stranger Things 2. Woo!